Welcome to Butcher Block Horror Podcast, where we exhume horror movies from the past and cut into what makes them so delectable. I'm Kane.
I am JD.
And I'm Joe.
Today, we're going to be throwing the gate onto the slab and carving up our favorite portions to force feed to you, our unwitting victims. If you enjoy the taste of these feasts of fright, then give us a like and subscribe. Being sure to click the bell. Consider following us on Twitter and Instagram. So, gentlemen, I have convinced you both to watch The Gate with me.
And we did.
We did. We watched it. Yeah.
I still found it to be a very fun movie.
It is fun. It's a fun movie.
I had fun.
It's most certainly a kid's movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely, as a PG-13 movie of that era, it would definitely be different by today's standards. It could possibly be an R rating by today's standards.
Oh, it absolutely would be an R rating by today's standards. Oh, yeah. Especially when we factor in Dad's head gushing goo and then falling off. When
Glenn, a.k.a. Stephen Dorff, touched his father's face and his face turned into a fucking bowl of oatmeal.
Yeah, just glorped out.
It was throat meal. It wasn't even oatmeal. It was like putrid Linda Blair exorcism vomit colored goo that just oozed through his prepubescent fingers, and it didn't look good. But it looked good by the special effects standards.
The special effects were good, yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. It was enjoyable in that respect.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at, first I'm going to kind of rewind a bit to the writing. We're talking about Michael Nankin, born 1955, Los Angeles, California. And he wrote The Gate around 1985 at age 30. And so we're looking at a time in his life where he's kind of going through some stuff and just looking at his life. I think he was going through some employment issues and a divorce and just hitting a rough patch in his adult life. And so he's writing this and planning on directing it, and finds someone to produce it. I believe his name was Herb Jaffe. Jaffe, that's correct, Herb Jaffe. So the original intended producer. And so like Nankin's, he's going through all these things, and his project is sort of foiled, and Jaffe sells the project, and so now there's this new, production company and a new director, and so Nankin's sort of like kind of nixed out of his own project in a sense, but still, it's his baby because he wrote it. So. And then, which leads us to the director, Tibor Tack. And so he's born 1954, Budapest, Hungary. And so he's, the guy who's responsible for directing this little horror film. So back to Nankin. He did a lot of work on like several 90s TV series, including one in particular named Life Goes On. So I'm not sure if y'all remember Life Goes On.
I remember, but I didn't really watch it.
Right. I definitely watched it, and I thought it was an interesting show for a few different reasons. I believe the main character, had Down syndrome, which is, I don't think that's ever, been a leading character with Down syndrome before. So interesting show. I don't think it was on the air for very long. Let's see what else. He was associated, Nankin was associated with a TV series called Van Helsing. And, I want to say that he directed some of a few of the shows of the Battlestar Galactica, and also a few episodes from the Exorcist TV series, which I had no idea existed.
Well, he was also a writer and director for, I don't know if you remember the little horror series Jim, American Gothic. I don't know if you guys did either of you.
I remember that show, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that one, but it sounds gothic.
And American.
Right. Clearly. So now to kind of talk for a moment about Tibor Tak. So he's known for a couple of shows, one being Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's with Clarissa Explains It All, right?
Say it again?
He did the TV movie Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh, was it a TV movie? Okay, I wasn't
No,
sure.
it was a show. It was on.
There was
TGIF.
a show. There was a show that was called of the same name.
Mm.
Well, my research didn't specify. I didn't dive that deep into.
Okay, yeah. He did Sabrina the Teenage Witch television movie.
Okay,
Interesting.
Yeah, which was the basis for the TV show. I mean, it had like Melissa Joan Hart in it. So I mean,
Sure.
Okay.
So it was basically a backdoor pilot for the show.
essentially, yeah.
Right on.
so Tak also did work on my Babysitter is a Vampire. So I'm not familiar with that either, even though
No.
it sounds kind of horror-ish.
It sounds like little kid horror-ish, though. So
Right. Which is totally on par with The Gate.
yeah,
The Gate was produced. It gives, basically 2 credits. John Kemeny, though, would be the main credit that, did production. Music by Michael Honig and J. Peter Robinson. And there was quite a large sound department for this film. 18 people.
holy shit,
18 people took part in the
that's a lot
sound
of
crew.
fucking people.
Yeah, it is.
It was pretty involved beyond the score. There's a lot of, sounds associated with the special effects. And so then I can go on to the special effects.
Which is honestly the real reason to watch this fucking
that's the
movie.
big draw for this
Like
one.
the
Absolutely.
The story is contrived and kind of stupid. I thought it was awesome when I was a little kid, but the fucking special effects in this movie were fucking fantastic.
They are. And actually, to speak on the story for a moment, we're looking at, to talk about that little period of time for Michael Netkin, the writer of the film, around 1985. He was just kind of recalling, a lot about his childhood. So, there is a lot of, genuine aspects of this film, and in his own recollection of his childhood that, he was just kind of like embellishing, thoughts and ideas that were sort of horrific. And originally this film was intended to be a lot more gory and a lot more horrific than it actually was. It had changed quite a bit. In that turnover, when I mentioned Herb Jaffe earlier, along with that big change there in the production, a lot, so many things changed in the direction of the story and how it was told, and the thought behind it was that all the main characters are children, so how do we present this R-rated horror film to children, essentially, because they didn't know how they would market a film starring children to adults, so they basically had to change things and water it down, a new producer and just all of that. So they really just kind of changed what it was meant to be. But Nankin, he kind of saw himself as the main character, Glenn. And as a child, his best friend's name was Terry, like his friend named Terry in The Gate. So, there's kind of some overlap there in his actual childhood, and it was all sort of inspiration for writing this. So back to the special effects. We're looking at artists John Baker, Frank Carey, Jordan Craig, Deborah J. Tiffin, T. Dow Albon. That was the main special effects team. And what you'll see in the gate is hella stop frame animation and working through scale. So one of the bits of research I kind of took down to share with our listeners had to do with the fact that they had recreated these really large scale sets, so that way like regular sized people could wear the costumes of the creatures that the little demons that came spewing from the gate. Those were people, like, just average sized human beings.
Forced perspective stuff. Exactly.
And so like, they were just actors and actresses in demon costumes running around sort of, it wasn't, not all of it was stop frame animation. Some of it was just, like real time people in costume. And I thought that was kind of interesting, that they would use that as a special effect. So aspects of that coupled with the stop frame animation and just some of the cool, there was a little bit of CGI in this, I want to say, like very, early CGI, some of those moths or whatever they were that were kind of glowing, that I would consider that,
Well, I mean, I guess that, honestly, that does, what do you consider, like, I don't know if those were computer generated graphics. Like, it looked more like using, like, crossover, like, cell animation.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, I don't think it was CGI. I think it was like, Ghostbusters, how they did the lightning and whatnot. Like,
sure, but like maybe a precursor to,
Maybe. I don't know. If anybody knows more about that,
share in the comments.
Yeah, feel free to let us know. All right, well, let's go ahead and briefly talk about the 3 actors that matter.
Sure. So we're looking at the young man character boy there named Stephen Dwarf.
The dwarf.
So he played the role of Glenn. And Dwarf was born in 1973 in Atlanta, Georgia, and known for a few different roles professionally in some pretty big films. Blade, if you guys remember the movie Blade.
Oh, yeah.
Immortals, and something called The Power of One.
I don't remember that.
I'm so unfamiliar. And then something else called Somewhere. Again, completely unfamiliar.
Right.
I tend to gravitate toward stuff that I know in the horror genre because that's what I'm a fan of. He had a small role in a movie called Leatherface, which I'm familiar with. I didn't recognize Stephen Dorff in Leatherface, but I'm sure if I were to go back and review that, I'd spot him right away. He was also in a movie starring Johnny Depp called Public Enemies.
I remember that movie. I don't remember much about it, though.
He was also in a horror movie in like 2005 called Alone in the Dark.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a Christian Slater as the lead role movie.
Yeah, loosely based on the video game of the same name.
I think that is correct.
Yeah.
I watched that movie a couple of times when it came out. It wasn't very good.
No, it was not very good.
It was probably one of the worst films I'd ever watched.
Sure.
So Dorff was a pretty busy child actor. He also had some stuff that I remember from being a really, really little kid. I guess he was in an episode of Different Strokes, and then he was in an episode of Family Ties. I don't know if you guys remember those shows.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
Very 80s stuff. So the next character that we could speak about is Krista Denton, born 1972, and played the role of Al, which is Glenn's sister.
It was short for Alexandra.
Alexandra, correct.
Yep.
So she was known in a role in, I believe it was a film called Not My Kid, and then a movie called The Bad Seed, something called 8 Million Ways, and then she had a few small roles in 80s TV, one show in particular, Silver Spoons. That was kind of, for me, that was right up there with Different Strokes and Family Ties. It was a good example of that era. And also, she was in Growing Pains, a few episodes of Growing Pains.
Okay.
And so the character that played Terry Chandler, that was Louis Tripp. So he was the dude that kind of looked like the Dungeon Master guy that we had talked about.
He was the penultimate Dungeon Master of the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the like kind of geeky glasses, the short haircut, but he still had like the the fucking heavy metal t-shirts and the jean vest.
Yeah,
sure.
Heavy metal dudes are prone to wear. With the band Killer Dwarfs.
Yep.
And don't be confused. It's not Killer Dwarves.
Dwarves.
It is absolutely Killer Dwarfs.
That's a good distinction to make. It's something that people should know, that there's a difference between one and the other.
One of them is the correct way to talk about multiple dwarfs. Or dwarf in plural.
And one is not.
Yeah.
So now, I believe Chris Denton was...
And I'd like everyone to know, the Killer Dwarfs were a real fucking heavy metal band.
What?
That's pretty awesome.
I thought they just made up a band to put on his vest.
Formed in 1981. They were a Canadian heavy metal band out of Oshawa, Ontario.
Huh.
What a kick-ass shout-out to that band at that time.
Who enjoyed moderate success in their native Canada in the 1980s.
They enjoyed the shit out of that success, I'll bet.
Oh, it gets better. So they were known for their offbeat sense of humor. All band members adopted the surname Dwarf.
Nice.
So like Joey Dwarf, Bobby Dwarf. Nice.
Yeah, so it was like Russ Dwarf, Daryl Dwarf, Jerry Dwarf, and Johnny Dwarf.
Joe Dwarf, JD Dwarf. No. Work with me, fellas. So the best...
And this is important. On January 5th, 2018, it was announced that the Killer Dwarfs had signed to Megadeth bassist David Ellefson's EMP label group, who would release a live album, No Guff, on April 13th, as well as reissuing the band's independently released Start at One and vocalist Graham's solo debut, Wireless. So
sweet. I heard that was a mini tour alongside Megadeth. Nice.
I knew what you were trying to do, and I had to stop it.
That's fine. Joe didn't help either. Joe didn't help either.
I thought I like just letting a joke die in the wind.
That's fine.
That's what
it's
did.
Like a bad fart that got carried away. Be gone, gas.
Yeah, so that's the D&D kid was a big fan of Killer Dwarfs.
The Killer Dwarfs do have videos on YouTube, by the way.
All right, that's something we'll need to take note of and possibly watch.
And that's something I'd like to encourage our listeners to take action with. Go ahead and listen to the Killer Dwarfs. And
after you listen to this podcast.
Exactly.
Right.
Comment.
Don't stop listening to us.
Don't.
Just so you can go switch to the Killer Dwarfs.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're pausing us, it's fine.
Yeah, open them in a new tab.
I mean, we are talking about a children's horror film with a budget of $2.5 million. So I would understand if you'd rather listen to the Killer Dwarfs, but if you stay with us, I can almost certainly assure you that we're going to cover more territory here if you just keep your attention.
It really just depends on what we get out of this. So
I'm about to talk about a really cute dog named Angus in this film. So what kind of dog was that? Do you guys know what kind of dog that was?
It's like was it a sheepdog?
A sheepdog? Well, whatever kind of dog that was, I just love that dog. I feel like that was a great dog.
It's a shepherd dog.
It could very well have been the star of this movie. I know you like to remind us that at this
that
point, that dog is
definitely
dead. And that's fine, but I still
that
like
was
to imagine...
an old English sheepdog.
I like old English sheepdogs. I think they're really pretty dogs.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic dog.
And I want to cut in on this because I don't feel like I'm getting a fair shake here. Okay?
That's fine. Go shake yourself.
I mean, we're not misrepresenting you. You reminded us multiple times throughout the film that dog is dead.
Yeah. Look,
I don't
to
know
my
how
dismay.
Yeah. and it made us sad. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think I was just, as
irreparable
a movie review,
damage.
As a movie review, I was simply stating the facts.
Uh-huh.
You guys were commenting on that was your favorite character in the movie, and I was just assuring you that you would never see that dog in another movie ever again.
With the express intent of making us sad.
Look, how you felt about it didn't fucking matter, all right?
Facts don't care about your feelings, me.
I apologize for Ben Shapiroing you.
Our listeners could technically...
Fuck that guy.
Our listeners can actually sync our track of us recording over to that film and kind of like hear what we had to say if they're interested. I encourage that action.
We have not edited that or set it up yet. I have to take out all of I don't know how many times I probably said that the dog was dead.
No, you got to leave that all in there so they can enjoy it.
It was untarnished.
It was probably pretty... it's probably irresponsible, the amount of times I reminded you.
Are you not willing to sadden our listeners as you have saddened us? Are you not willing to step on the soles of our listeners with your calloused feet?
Wait, hold on, whoa.
I don't know. None of us have souls, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe we do.
So Angus was an adorable old English sheepdog.
Mm-hmm.
And we loved him. That played Angus is decades dead at this point.
Thanks for the reminder. All right, so anyway, Angus is fucking immortal, okay? And
it's immortalized.
Immortalized.
In the 1987 film The Gate.
Well, anyone that loved Angus as much as I do, you can go ahead and watch The Gate and see Angus in his glory or her glory and just be like, yeah, cool dog.
Did the dog get a credit in the script? Or in the
I'm giving Angus credit right now in this podcast. So,
well, because some movies will do that if there's an animal.
Sure. They'll
say, Barkley as, So I was just curious if the dog actually got a credit.
That'd be cool. I'd be interested to know what Angus's actual dog name was.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and just talk about the fact that this movie was sort of filmed between the United States and Canada. And so the actors I just named, they're Canadians. Louis Tripp, who played Terry, was born 1973, Ontario, Canada. And Louis, as far as I researched, was the only actor who appeared in both The Gate and The Gate 2. No one else was also in The Gate 2. Another actor would be Kelly Rowan, played Tori Lee, born 1965, or Ontario, Canada. And actually had a pretty big role later on in life, but played Kristen Cohen in a show called The O.C., and then which I would have no idea what that was, but in my research it appeared as though that was a pretty big thing at some point. I think it might have been like MTV or whatever. And then she also had a small role in the movie Hook. And then I would know her from a really excellent horror film called The Candyman.
Nice.
Farewell to the Flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Hook was also a very good movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she played Peter's mother.
Okay, that's cool. And then she was also in something called 187, which I believe was a horror film, but I haven't seen it, which is weird, unusual for me to not have seen a horror film. But I don't know what it was. And then we have Jennifer Irwin, played Linda Lee. born 1975, Ontario, Canada. And she was known for, I believe, a movie called Exit Wound, if anyone knows what Exit Wound is. Also in Superstar and No Strings Attached. And then we just have, like, you know, the mom, you know, Glenn's mom and dad, and who is...
I didn't recognize either of those. I don't know who the fuck Scott Denton is.
Right. Deborah Grover was the mom. Scott Denton was the dad. Paula, I have no idea who Paula was. Ingrid Venger. Sean Fagan was Eric, maybe one of the teenagers later in the film.
Like I said,
shuffled.
Honestly, the only three characters. I mean, I guess if you wanted to
throw Angus in there.
Well, Angus is dead.
You morbid bastard. All right. Officially, we all can acknowledge that Angus is dead. There's no need to say it again.
I'm sure he's going to, though.
That's fine.
So Kelly Rowan and Jennifer Irwin were Lori Lee and Linda Lee, which I'm assuming that's the two...
The sisters' friends.
Yeah,
they okay.
So they mattered too because they were there during the initial like fucked up stuff that happened.
Right.
But then honestly, the movie's just kind of centered around those three kids.
Sure. And there's
Terry,
a very
Glenn and Al.
Very brief role by an actress named Linda Goranson, who played Terry's mom. And then probably one of my favorite characters in the film, although had no speaking role, more just moaning roles, was the workman.
yeah.
Carl Cranes. And he basically just walked around and moaned and tormented these poor kids and, you know, just appeared out of thin air a few times, showed up in a gun case.
Showed up in a mirror?
Showed up in the mirror, just kind of was moving around, fell out of the wall, you know, which is interesting because it goes back to a story that Michael Nankin recalled of his childhood friend named Terry. Upon them meeting as he was a child, Terry apparently told him that, you know, the house your parents just bought that you've just moved into, one of the workers who constructed the house died and was sealed in the wall. And that was like on the first day of them meeting in their friendship. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, we all need a friend like that growing up, right?
The guy that gives you nightmares.
Yeah, that's your friend who tells you shit stories.
Nightmares are just free horror movies?
Basically. I mean, I always felt that way. I remember I grew up and my best childhood friend was named Alex. And I remember like it was just his mom and his grandma, and they were like awesome. And then like a couple years went by, and then the mom like remarried, and she married this guy, and he would always like pull me off to the side and be like, dude, you got to stop telling Alex horror stories. You're scaring the fucking shit out of him. He's having nightmares. And he'd always kind of like, in a real creepy way, like always try to like tell me that I needed to stop telling him horror stories. But I'm like, dude, like, fuck you. Like, we're kids, you know? Like, that's what we do. We share ghost stories. Like, fuck off. But it's a weird experience.
Overall, this is definitely a kid's horror movie, but it's not. I don't think it's just for kids. I think that especially later in the film, once they've like established the relationships of the characters, it's definitely got all of the hallmarks of an 80s, just a straight up 80s horror movie.
Sure. It's missing some major elements, though. I mean, for me personally, it's missing like some serious aspects. Like the most 80s horror films have like, sex, guts, gore, that type of thing. Drugs, rock and roll. This movie has a little rock and roll in it, and then pretty much just a fucking steamy hole in their backyard that's like oozing demons.
Yeah, they were kind of ooze-like. But, they were like, was it an oobleck? Because they were mostly solid.
Right.
But if you applied pressure, it's like the opposite of an oobleck. Because when you applied pressure, they turned into like a squirmy, liquidy mass.
Yeah, I like when one of them fell and he turned into like a bunch of tadpoles, and then later on in the film, when the workman, he does like this fucking slow face plant, into the ground. Carl Crane just does like a dead fall, face first into the ground, and as he splashes into a bunch of demons, and they all sort of disperse, and it's cool. Like for me, I think that was one of my favorite moments.
So I think we should be honest with the listeners, and that I think I'm the only one that really likes this film.
I think our listeners can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I've certainly seen worse movies.
I didn't hate it either. It's a charming movie, and I feel that our listeners should take a watch. We're approaching some heavy cold months here coming up, and it's definitely something to, kind of, if you're a horror film fan, go ahead and watch it,
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm looking at this cast list, and I'm seeing Sean Fagan, who played Eric. I have no idea who Eric was, but apparently there was
Eric was the boyfriend to be, the one that's like, maybe she's just not ready for me yet.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, there were so many just like douchey guys that hung around the background of that movie.
Like the creepy 30-year-old that's telling the spooky story.
Yeah, and then fucking later on, like the Cobra Kai show up from Karate Kid, and they're like, put him in a body bag. No, they didn't actually say that, but...
Yeah, none of that happened.
It reminded me of it. It had that vibe, They were like a couple of teenage boy fucking dickhead dudes show up, and they're just,
They were hiding in a closet, and they were just trying to scare them, and it backfired because some real shit was happening.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to scare people like when you're alive, when there are people who are dead scaring you.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, I felt like the old gods, because you learn through the film that from a heavy metal band, no less, called, was it Sacrifice?
I think so.
Oh, cool. I like
that
the
was
name.
on the front of the album?
Yeah.
So a band called Sacrifice. We learn from that band that has a very long spoken word moment on their album where they essentially give you the entire backstory of these old gods.
Was that what Terry was lip syncing to in the mirror while he was wrapped up in that blankie?
Yes. Yes.
That was an excellent scene.
Yeah. But I thought that it was pretty good that it felt like the old gods were just trolling them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because
fucking with them.
Yeah, because they would like do something and the hole would disappear, and they're like, "Yay, we did it!" And then the hole would open back up, and they'd be like, "Oh no!" And then they'd do another thing, and they'd be like, "Yay, we closed it!" And then
there was hella trolling in this film.
Yeah. They would close up again. Like, it was them fucking with them.
Yeah,
the gods were fucking with them.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel that.
I also think that it was funny that JD was hating on the dwarf, like from the moment he appeared on screen, because he was wearing a Canadian astronaut's jacket.
I mean,
and I was trying to decipher whether or not your issue wasn't that it was astronauts, but if it was Canadians. So do you have like an issue with Canadians? Because I don't.
Do you not like Canadians, JD?
I don't actually. I don't have a problem with Canadians. No, you just got me to like say that all out of context. I like Canadians just
Clip
fine.
That for later use.
I really,
I could edit that and make it real nasty.
You could, but if you just leave it as is, our listeners are smart enough to know that you guys are a bunch of bastards. Talk about trolling, you fucking demons. You guys are trolling me right now.
We just think it's weird that you hate Canadians, man.
Yeah, I'm not cool with that.
I like their healthcare system just fine. And they're some of the most polite people I've met. I've had some good Canadian friends in my lifetime. I've had the good fortune of knowing some really excellent Canadians. And I'm pretty sure one of their hockey teams just won the fucking big old hockey thing that happened.
That's because they're one of the only teams that is still playing hockey right now.
Is the NHL finished? I thought one of the teams won. No?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, somebody won the game.
The only sport that I follow is none of them.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a good reason for that, because we're a bunch of horror film fan fucking nerds.
We are nerds, yeah.
All right, so I feel like now would probably be a good time to go ahead and
talk
just
about what
discuss...
actually happened in the movie.
Well, I want people to watch it on their own. We don't need to...
Sure.
What I would say is just kind of talk about your own personal experience with the film, like what you thought of it, how it made you feel. Obviously, it sounds like I was the only one that liked it, but was I the only one that saw it like in the early 90s?
No, yeah. My first time watching it was with the two of you just now.
Okay.
So
I've viewed this before in the past. I guess it just wasn't fresh enough in my memory. So like rewatching it now with you two gentlemen made it a fun experience. And you know, in my recollection, my minimal recollection of this film, I do remember appreciating the the little demon creatures
right.
and just
the
the
little demons were amazing.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and we'll start with our little process here. We'll start with Joe. Go ahead and talk about your experience with the film.
Yeah, sure. I got some joy out of it. The special effects were fun. The little demons were great. Our commentary over top of it was fun. I think I did, where we talked about it briefly during the watch. I think I did get more joy out of it than Puppet Master.
Yeah, I did too. Oddly.
Yeah, it, at least because it seemed to be having fun with itself. Like, that's one thing that I have to give it, because Puppet Master was so straight-faced all the way through.
More demon screen time than puppet time in Puppet Master.
So many demons. They could have called that movie Demon Master.
Yes, they could have.
And it would have been more justified than Puppet Master being called Puppet Master.
It should have been psychics and a couple of puppets. That's what Puppet Master should have been called.
But no, like, I could definitely see this being a fun, like, watch around Halloween kind of movie.
And especially if you have a kid.
For sure. If they're comfortable with some pretty scary material.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff. Now,
don't traumatize your child.
Is there anything that's...
What?
No,
I was
go ahead.
Going to say, don't eat oatmeal while you're watching this movie. That's my only suggestion.
Don't tear off your own face in front of your child.
Yeah, don't do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you've died, don't come back and possess the family dog.
Or hide in gun cases.
Well, hold on. And hug your child that thinks that you're dead. Because that's going to be a lot of therapy.
It is.
Yeah. A lot to unpack there.
Kid's not going to recover from that. I don't think.
But, so, was there anything in the movie that kind of stood out that made you go, I want to bring this up and see what the guys think, or what the listeners think?
Those little demons were amazing, and I love them. And if they weren't going to murder me or potentially open a portal to Azazoth, I would like to just have them in my house, just to party with.
Sure.
What kind of party?
I mean,
do you think?
when the big, the king demon appeared and they were kind of doing these gyrations, in my mind it felt like they were having a little dance party.
You wanted to be a part of it.
And I wanted to be a part of that.
All right, I can dig that. All right, JD, what did talk about your experience and then anything that kind of popped up to you?
I like when the phone melted. Like, they got a haunted phone call, and then all of a sudden this, like, beautiful red, shitty old telephone just, like, starts, like, oozing its own paint and bursts into flames, falls off the wall, and just sort of burns as everyone's, like, completely, like, frantic for a moment, because they just had a lot of shit to unpack, witnessing all this, like, horrific stuff. And then, you get a phone call or whatever, and the phone fucking starts on fire and melts. I mean, I thought that was kind of cool.
Ballsy move for the monsters. Like, usually in a horror movie, when the critter crawler, the monster, calls you on the phone, they're just like, I see you, I'm a scary monster. But they don't set your fucking phone on fire.
Right. These monsters just go straight for, like, a fire hazard.
Yeah.
And the fact that their parents are out of town for 3 days, you go ahead and you burn the fucking place down. Like, that's the ultimate trolling shit there, man. That's a dick
I would
move.
like to say that at least a tongue didn't come out and try to make out with the daughter.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because chances are that demon tongue was way too old for that daughter.
I mean, especially if it's a demon, it's probably like thousands of years old.
Thousands of years old, you know? And this young girl's like 15 at best, so I don't know.
Well,
but that moment stood out to me, a cool special effect, and then
the phone was cool.
Just a lot of nostalgia in this film for me. Like, even there's a scene where they're all in the basement and they're holding, a mix of candles and these like old school flashlights. And it just kind of sparked something in me and made me remember those flashlights. They were like, kind of like solid colored, like unusual by today's standard of what a flashlight would be. Like these things were like
giant.
Yeah, just larger flashlights and took like those giant fucking D-cell batteries and like the weight of the flashlight itself, like they should have used those to beat the shit out of the demons with. Because like seriously, you could do
and the light from those flashlights was shitty.
Yeah, you couldn't see anything with those. It was like, okay, how many of these can I hold? Like, if the lights actually went out in your home in the 80s, you were pretty much fucked. Because you had a shit flashlight in your hand. And by the time you needed it, those batteries were dead.
Absolutely.
That's how it worked. You'd have like a utility drawer, at least in the Midwest. The power would go out a few times a summer, a bad thunderstorm, and then we'd all race to the utility drawer and pull out the shitty flashlight, and you'd have to shake it. And then sometimes you'd open it up, and the crust from the D-cell battery would fucking crumble all over, and you'd probably mix it up later with some sugar or something and be like, ah. But
wait,
that's
what?
Just me.
Wait, hold on.
Oh wait, sorry. You'd mix it up with your bag of blow.
Don't snort battery acid, listeners at home.
Don't snort battery acid powder.
Honestly, just don't snort anything.
Don't snort anything, especially not a pixie stick.
Yeah, that's how you get a nosebleed.
80s thing to do, though, I'd have to say.
And mid-90s.
I have one more piece of, something to offer. So apparently the color from Dimensions or Hell or anywhere in any horror film is fuchsia.
Right.
It's
in
like
the
this
80s.
Ultraviolet pink light that like beams out of stuff. And then, there's moments where like, who was it? Glenn goes down into this fucking hole.
No, it was Terry.
Terry is down in the hole. There's no pink light down there, no fuchsia light. But beaming from the hole as they're all standing outside of it, fuchsia light. How is this possible? So to me, it's pretty. I have an
interest.
Idea. Sure.
So I feel like the pink fuchsia light was the gateway.
Okay.
But if you were looking out of the gateway, you didn't
fuchsia.
see the light.
Oh,
only if you were looking into
only
the
from
gateway.
the outside looking in do you see the glow.
So it's to entice the people
that.
outside of the gateway to enter the gateway. Because it's kind of enticing.
Yeah, I would. That looks like a place I want to be.
Right.
Yeah, like where you can party and dance with the demons.
Hell
yeah, because you got like the dry ice coming out, like the smoke spewing out of the hole along with this bright fuchsia light.
Yeah, this looks like a cool disco. I'm intrigued.
And then, once, what was it? You said Terry, once he's down in the hole, remember when he got attacked by the demons? One was like gnawing on his knee. Another one
neck.
was like giving him a hickey.
Yeah.
And, there was no mark on Terry's neck that I can recall after that, like a demon bite. So I thought they kind of missed that opportunity to, add a flesh wound, but I guess you can't really they did it in Pet Sematary, the little kid Gage. He had visible flesh wounds, but Terry had no flesh wounds after a pretty severe demon bite. And I would imagine
that's indicative of the fact that Pet Sematary was rated R.
And this was PG-13. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, this movie seemed to really carefully tiptoe around like what it could and couldn't, or at least what it wasn't comfortable with trying to get away with.
Well, they should have aroused their level of comfort and got away with much more than they did. Because I just feel like, it could have been what it was, and it could have been a bit more with still maintaining that wholesome sort of, you could watch this with your whole family sort of horror film. Like,
sure.
Well, seeing as that my dad let me watch Puppet Master and a bunch of other horror movies, you know.
I mean, I watched Day of the Dead with my grandmother. I mean, we were like...
You watched From Beyond with your grandmother.
I did, dude. And Pretorius's glistening, half-naked body, hairy...
No, full naked.
Well, you didn't see
we
his
saw his
penis,
sweet ass.
You did see his sweet ass, and like that was fine by my grandma. She didn't mind, you know. She was just like, okay, like there's a naked guy, whatever. She didn't even like acknowledge it. But I don't know. Like this movie could have been just a touch, you know, racier in the horror gore
violence department.
Maybe not so much violence, but just, I guess, you know, maybe like a few more visual effects to just sort of like tip the scales back toward being, you know, an 80s horror film. Because I feel like for me, that's 80s horror was, you know, a lot of fake blood. I don't think there was even a single drop of blood in this movie.
No, there was. Like when Angus was dead and they pulled the sheet back, like there was blood hanging out of his mouth. No, that was his
tongue. That was his tongue like wiggling around.
There was blood too.
But it was a dog tongue. It wasn't like a human tongue. They didn't want to like...
Haha, see? You didn't care.
I do care, but I'm saying I'm making the distinction between I'm giving a reason why they may have shown... Because they didn't value an animal life as much as they valued a human life. So they weren't going to show any substantial gore other than that bowl of oatmeal face when, you know, he poked his fingers in his dad's eyes as his dad sort of, you know, grabbed him by the throat, strangled him. But other than like bowl of oatmeal, like lime green face, like there wasn't much in the way of like bodily gore.
Nah, I mean, there definitely wasn't a lot of blood.
Yeah, if any. I don't remember any. That's problematic. And I should say that their kitchen had hella fucking primary colors.
Oh, yeah.
Just so you know, because I went back and looked, there's blood on the pillow around Angus's mouth when the sister pulls the blanket back. Not that's like... That's not an okay amount of blood for a horror film. I need to see more than that.
Mm-hmm. It's not substantial. It's not, and it's not from a human. It's no human blood in the making of this film.
And the dwarf does stab his own hand to get rid of an eyeball.
Oh, and he did pull a toothpick.
Bloody.
He did pull a toothpick out of his hand when he found that geode too in the beginning.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much blood is enough, JD? That's the question. You know,
I often think about the movie, which I think that I'm going to be picking very soon for one of our very near future episodes. I'm going to be picking Dead Alive.
Nice.
And that movie.
What's funny is I almost picked that for this episode.
Well, that would have given me a fucking boner because I love that movie. That movie is like one of my all-time favorites in horror.
I kick ass for the Lord.
That's right. He did. And so not to, you know,
let's break away
wash
from that.
Over
let's break away from that.
Now that you've teased it, we have to do it.
But you asked me about how much blood is enough blood, and that movie, in my opinion, had enough blood.
So that's the scale.
That's the bar. That's the bar. Dead Alive is the bar for amount of fake blood in a horror film.
Right. Well, then I guess the very soon we're going to need to do Dead Alive. But I'm going to talk about my experience with
Please do.
So obviously I saw the movie, you know, in the late 80s, you know, around the time that it came out. I was terrified by it when I was a little kid.
There's a lot of scary stuff in there.
When the hands come out from under the bed after they find Angus's corpse.
Oh yeah, they grab Al.
That fucking scared the shit out of me. When the worker, the undead worker, busts through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like that scene scared the shit out of me, especially when he started moving and he grabbed Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And then the scene where the creature design for the master demon isn't cheesy.
No, it was actually really excellent. The big multiple armed, he kind of resembled like Goro from Mortal Kombat. He had if you think about
other attempts at that type of scale.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, like look at like King Kong, you know, those stop animations or that kind of stuff. Like that shit looks fucking awful in comparison to what the Master Demon looks like in The Gate.
Yeah, right.
Right.
You know, like it's stop motion. There's going to be elements of cheesiness because it's a fucking clay model, right? Like there's no way you could get away from that.
Sure.
But
And Carl Cranes.
What's that?
I was going to say, and Carl Cranes, the workman, was a pretty good zombie.
He was a great zombie.
Yeah, he was.
He was a pretty excellent
fantastic zombie. But no, I mean that movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Obviously, you know, as a grown up, it doesn't scare me. There's, you know, I had memories of the scares when I was a kid when we were watching it tonight.
Sure.
But you know, it doesn't scare me. But it's I think it's a really good film overall.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that popped out for me. I'm going to take this a little bit on the dark side here. Is Terry leads a miserable life.
Oh fuck yeah!
And I know it's not written in, but I think he summoned the demons on purpose.
There's a possibility in that.
Yeah.
His mom's dead. His dad's never around. You know, he
seemed very knowledgeable about
and
this
he
whole
was,
demon situation.
Yeah, there's even a scene where they're going down into the basement and one of the girls is asking him questions and he's like, "Hey, stop it. I know a lot about this stuff."
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a scene where Linda Göransson, who played Terry's mom, she appears as like an apparition and in this like angelic white gown and sort of like embraces him and then, you know, gets spooky.
He
from
kills
there.
Angus. Yeah, he kills Angus, giving Angus a incredibly hard hug, like a powerful hug, thinking that Angus is his mom because the demons were fucking with his head.
Yeah, that was a powerful moment.
That was a really dark moment for this kind of being a kid's movie.
Well, yeah, that's the imagination of Michael Nankin. You know, he said, you know, I in my research I read that he was like, yeah, I pulled all of this out of my, you know, childhood mind. You know, all of, you know, his fears, his deepest fears, and things that he, you know, was recalling during that dark time that, you know, I mentioned earlier. So
yeah.
But I mean, the other things that lead me into believing that kind of stuff is that when Terry got taken, he shows back up in demon form and tries to eat the dwarf's hand.
Right.
Al does not. When Dwarf is like getting ready to do the business with Rocket,
right,
he hears Al asking for help to be saved. He does not hear Terry asking to be saved.
It's true. He was fine with it.
So, you know, listeners, if you've got some thoughts and opinions on that, feel free to chime in.
It's unlikely, but it is an interesting coincidence that actor is the only one that shows up in the sequel.
Right?
I like to imagine that he's the villain.
Yeah.
Well, he reappeared, you know, as a living, you know, character unscathed by demons at the end. So I don't know. I mean,
much to his disappointment.
Yeah.
Then he had to act like everything was cool. Like, oh man, you defeated the Dark One.
I did like when Terry popped out of that gun case and bit the dwarf's hand with those little incisors that he had there.
That was
and
a good effect.
He just was like, he didn't break the skin, which was, again, you know, a lack of blood. Oh, and then I remember the sister, though, did stab the dwarf through the eye socket. Or no, I'm sorry, Terry, she stabbed him in the eye socket with her Barbie doll leg. And there was a little bit of blood in that scene. I do remember that. So, but like 5 drops of blood.
A lot less than what would have happened if you actually gouged someone's eye out.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with a doll.
Yeah. And, you know, like then the demons are like peering through the fucking banister, like watching them, like they don't know that they're hiding in the closet after that. You know, it's like, come on, guys, just fucking run or something. Do something.
Right.
So the other thing, and this again relates to Terry,
of course,
and it really has nothing to do about horror, but when he comes home after they throw the Bible in the hole and think they've saved the day, right?
Right.
So he comes home, and there's a note on the refrigerator that's from his dad that says, away on business. Business was spelled wrong.
Yep.
You get to kind of see a little bit around the house, and the house is fucked up. There's like day old pizza sitting on the counter. There's like trash everywhere. I don't know if what profession is Terry's dad.
He's a drug dealer.
Exactly. That's
He's a drug
out
dealer.
on business, muling drugs from Mexico through the U.S. to get back up to Canada.
Sure.
So
he was up to something.
It makes sense to me that Terry was in league with the demons the whole time.
I feel
right.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and another thing just popped up to me, and I'd like to put this out into the world too. And I say this with quotation marks, the teenager telling the horror story during the party scene
was like 37.
Yeah, that was an adult man.
He was so old and just hanging out with little kids.
Yep.
Yeah. He was trouble.
Are there other horror movies that you guys can think of that have that element? That guy that's supposed to be 16, but is and looks like 28.
I just thought about Dazed and Confused with like Matthew McConaughey, like hanging out with a bunch of teenagers after he had graduated high school. Like, I don't know. But this guy was a little different. Like he was.
No, they had the same energy.
But an even
they
creepier
had that same creep
vibe.
energy.
Yeah. It was undesirable.
I think just Matthew McConaughey kind of skated by on charm.
Yeah.
But same energy, though.
Yeah,
this guy had no
energy.
charm, though. Yeah.
Uncharismatic.
He was just red-faced while I was telling the story, and it was... I got bad feelings from him being in the scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It would have taken, like, two tough teenager guys to be like, all right, bro, you need to leave.
Maybe he bought them the beer, and that's why he was allowed to just lurk.
There's potential in that.
Yeah, teenagers take some serious risks to get booze sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't see any I don't remember seeing alcohol containers. I don't remember seeing even red Solo cups or anything. I don't remember any evidence of there being,
Well, I mean, people were smoking cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And they were drinking from cans. I just couldn't see if they were beer.
Yeah. It might have been Mr. Pibb is what you're saying.
I may have just projected.
Some Tab. Do you guys remember Tab from the 80s? They were probably just drinking Tab. But it went away for a long time too. Or maybe they were drinking clear Coke or clear Pepsi.
Crystal Pepsi?
Yeah. That was weird stuff.
I can't remember if it was good or not.
Max Headroom popped up in their TV and told them to drink it.
All right. Well, we've hit that point, gentlemen.
You don't want to talk about late 80s, early 90s cultural artifacts some more?
No, I'm good.
No.
I'm good. I mean,
I'm just going to say two words. Bubble tape.
Bubble tape. 6 feet of bubble gum for you, not them.
That was 90s, though.
90.
I guess you could just throw 1990 into the 80s if that's what you want to do. Just do whatever the fuck you want.
That's how decades work. You don't start with 0.
Okay.
They were let's say 89 in the bonus. Bubble tape.
So then 1980 is technically the last year of 1970s?
Yeah, that's how that works.
Bonus. It's 1979
Is it
bonus.
really how it works?
Yeah,
or just being an asshole?
No, it legitimately is one. I mean, it's kind of being pedantic, but that is because it's 1 through 10. It's not 0 through 9.
So disco still had a little, ass to shake, and it did.
Right then.
I think the show is
cool, right?
Yeah.
I think we've said everything we need to say.
Yeah, and probably even more.
Yeah. So if you watch The Gate, feel free to let us know what you think.
Please.
I personally think the film was great. These two assholes, they...
I do think it was just the right kind of cheese that it would be fun to like watch with your buddies around Halloween time.
Right. I endorse that message.
But yeah, so if you watch it, let us know what you think. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. You can just send us a message or comment. Also, we warn you against forgetting to like, follow, and subscribe.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
And ring the bell.